What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 college football schedule preview and projected record series. The Purdue Boilermakers are up next, and before we preview their schedule for 2024 and give them an early projected record based on how tough their schedule is, let's take a look back at what Purdue did in 2023. Here are my projections and predictions last year for Purdue. My projection for them was 8-4, and then my prediction for them was 6-6. So there was a difference here between my projection and predictions, and these were based off of different terms. For the projection, of course, that projection was based off of where they were the year before in 2022 when they did go to the Big Ten Championship, of course. And then, of course, the prediction was based off of the first-year head coach. So my prediction for them was 6-6. And I did actually have Purdue predicting to go to a bowl game, but obviously they took a big step back from where they were the year before, and this team officially went 4-8 last year in 2023. So again, first year head coach last year, 4-8 season for Purdue. This was a schedule from last year for the Boilermakers, and you look at their non-conference schedule. They played Fresno State, Virginia Tech, and Syracuse in the non-conference. They ended up losing to Fresno State there in that non-conference game, and then of course Virginia Tech and Syracuse were two teams out of the ACC. So that was a very tough non-conference schedule last year for Purdue. And then you look at their losses coming in the Big Ten last year. Lost to Wisconsin, Iowa, Ohio State, Nebraska, Michigan, and Northwestern. So yeah, they had a very tough conference schedule last year in the Big Ten. They had to play Ohio State and Michigan both out of the Big Ten East, and yes, that did make the schedule a lot more tougher here in the Big Ten Conference, obviously. And then, of course, they played Indiana out of the East as well, but they do play Indiana, of course, every year, and they ended up winning that game. So, again, Purdue 4-8 season for them in 2023. Let's now look ahead to 2024. Here is the schedule for Purdue, and before we go game by game, let's take a look at who they will play in the non-conference for this upcoming season. So you look at their non-conference schedule. They will play Indiana State, Notre Dame, and then of course Oregon State here on the road in the non-conference. So this is once again a very tough non-conference schedule for Purdue in back-to-back seasons. Only one easy game this time here in the non-conference, though, against Indiana State. They don't have to play a really good Group of 5 team this year, which is the really good news there, but they'll have to play Notre Dame and Oregon State. Notre Dame obviously going to be definitely like a playoff contender and also a top 10 team potentially as well. I don't know how good Oregon State's going to be this year, but that game is on the road. But that's good. It is on the road, so that's the reason why this game could be a lot tougher as well. So those are the non-conference games here for this non-conference schedule for Purdue. Let's go back to the schedule now and go game by game now for Purdue. They will start things off, of course, with Indiana State on August 31st, and they actually get a bye week here in the second weekend of the college football season. Their bye week comes here at a rather early time. They come out of the bye week to play Notre Dame at home on September the 14th. Then they go on the road to play Oregon State on September the 21st, and then back at home for Nebraska to open up Big Ten Conference play here on September the 28th. And then in the month of October, they go on the road to play Wisconsin here on October the 5th, on the road at Illinois here on October the 12th. So they got back-to-back road games there with Wisconsin and Illinois. Those are definitely very winnable games in my opinion for Purdue. And then you got Oregon here at home on October the 19th, and then they get their second bye week here in the last weekend of the month of October. And then in the month of November, they play at home against Northwestern here on November 2nd, then on the road at Ohio State here on November 9th, then back at home for Penn State on November 16th, and then they go on the road to play Michigan State on November 23rd, then close things out with Indiana here on the road on November 30th. So they got back-to-back road games there in the last two games of the season with Michigan State and Indiana. Also two very winnable games for Purdue. So that is the schedule for the Boilermakers for this upcoming season. This is another tough schedule for Purdue. Obviously, you got some tough road games. You got a tough non-conference schedule with Notre Dame and Oregon State. Then you got back-to-back road games against Wisconsin and Illinois, and then back-to-back road games with Michigan State and Indiana. But in my opinion, all four of those games are pretty winnable, to be honest. They're all on the road, but I think they're pretty winnable here for Purdue. And then you look at, of course, Ohio State and Oregon and Penn State. Those are very tough matchups there. You get Oregon and Penn State both at home at least, but you got to play Ohio State here on the road, which is definitely going to be brutal. So yeah, this is a very tough schedule for Purdue. So let's now get to the projection here for 2024. This is the scale I use. If it's a 1% game in the red, pretty much those are counted as automatic losses there in the red at 1%. And then 20% games here in the orange are going to be games where Purdue will be about a double-digit underdog. And then your 40% games here in the yellow will be games where Purdue will be a clear underdog in by about a touchdown. And then 50-50 games will, of course, stay in the white. Games I think can go either way. Your 60% games in the purple will be games where Purdue will be favored by about a touchdown, and then your 80% games here in the blue, Purdue will be favored by a couple touchdowns and also by double digits, and then your 99% games here in the green are pretty much your easy wins and also your automatic wins here in that percentage. So we'll start with the easy wins here for Purdue, and really only got one win on this schedule, and that's Indiana State, and that's it. So this is the only easy game here on this schedule, and the rest of the schedule is tough here for Purdue the rest of the way. So yeah, Indiana State I think should be a pretty easy win here for Purdue. It's a game that definitely is over 95% as a favorite here for the Boilermakers, and they definitely should win this game by 20-plus points. I could definitely see them scoring 30-plus and maybe 40-plus in this game. And again, that's the only easy win on here for Purdue. It's not a guaranteed win, but we counted as an automatic win here in our projection for that percentage. And like I said, the rest of the schedule is tough, so there's not any games on here where I can favor Purdue by double digits and also by about a touchdown. So let's skip over to the games where I think Purdue will be an underdog in. I do have one red game on here that's counted as an automatic loss, and that game is going to be on the road here at Ohio State. No shot that Purdue goes on the road and defeats Ohio State here in Columbus. It is a tough place to play. I just don't really see. I just don't think Purdue is on the level of Ohio State like they used to be. So Purdue, I think, will be a big underdog here on the road at Ohio State. So that's the only game that I can see them really potentially losing automatically. And then we go to the games where I think Purdue will be double-digit underdogs. I do got 3 games on here in the orange for Purdue. I got Notre Dame, Wisconsin, and Oregon. 2 games, of course, at home, and then 1 game on the road. Notre Dame is going to be a tough one here in the non-conference, but the good news is they get that game at home, and that's the reason why this game, ended up being in the orange instead of in the red, because they have the home field advantage. Same thing with Oregon. The reason why that game is in the orange is because, Purdue is playing at home. Wisconsin, that was very close to being a yellow game, but with it being on the road, that's definitely a game that I think Purdue will be double-digit underdogs in. So those are the 3 games where I think Purdue will be double-digit underdogs, and then you go to the games where I think Purdue will be a clear underdog in. I got one game on here in the yellow, and that's Penn State here at home on November 16th. Purdue does get the home field advantage in this game. And, if you look at this matchup, Purdue, obviously, in the late part of November, I think this is probably one of those upset alert type games that you probably don't want to sleep on if you're a Penn State fan. And I'm not saying that Purdue is going to absolutely have a chance to win this game. I think they do, but I think, it's also a game that they can probably potentially lose. But this game, again, is in the month of November, and I think things could probably shake up by the time we get into the month of November. And Penn State probably has their playoff hopes on the line going into this game, so I think Purdue definitely could be a clear underdog in this game. So that's the only game where I can see Purdue being a clear underdog in. And then you got 6 50-50 games on here for the Boilermakers: Oregon State, Nebraska, Illinois, Northwestern, Michigan State, and Indiana. So all 6 of these games are definitely pretty winnable here for Purdue. And again, I don't know how good Oregon State is going to be going into next year, but we know that, they're obviously going to still be the same team, probably perhaps. And then Nebraska, Illinois, Northwestern, I think these are pretty even matchups at home. Or I should say Illinois on the road, and then, of course, Michigan State and Indiana, back-to-back road games there. But those are definitely very winnable games on the road. Michigan State, obviously, they're going to have a first-year head coach. Indiana is a rivalry game. You never know what can happen. So those 2 games are definitely 50-50 games and pretty even matchups. So 6 total 50-50 games here for Purdue. Let's now get a projected record here for the Boilermakers for 2024. This is not my official prediction. This is simply a projection based on how tough the schedule is. So we count that 1 green game as an automatic win, then you count that 1 red game as an automatic loss, and then you average out those 3 orange games here at 20%, and then you average out that 1 game in the yellow at 40%. Then you average out all these 50-50 games here at 50%, and the overall projected record for Purdue comes out to be 4-8 here for 2024, so same record that they had in the regular season from last year, but definitely a different projection compared to my projection from last year. So again, 4-8 is the projection here for Purdue. This is a very tough schedule. I don't know how good Purdue is obviously going to be this year. Obviously had a first-year head coach last year. Maybe they do make some improvements. I think best case scenario would definitely have to be 5-7. Worst case, probably like 3-9. And I don't really think I would be shocked if they go 3-9 or 4-8 or maybe 5-7. It would really shock me if this team did go to a bowl game at least. But there's a lot of very winnable games in my opinion on this schedule. If you look at the 50-50 games, if they do win some of those games, they can probably go to a bowl game at least. But we'll have to wait and see and find out what it's going to play out here for Purdue. But that is my projection here for Purdue. Again, it's 4-8 for 2024 based on how tough this schedule is. And again, this is a very tough schedule for the Boilermakers for 2024. So give me your thoughts on this Purdue team down in the comments below. What do you think their projected record is for 2024? Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.